What's up, everybody? Today we're going to be doing a 2.5 inch lift kit on a 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee limited 4x4. This is going to be the same pretty much for any of the same generation of Jeep. It's a pain in the ass, but we got it done. I was only able to record the front driver's side. We started with the front passenger side. Had some complications with the spring compressors, had to go buy new ones. But we were successful in doing the front driver's side with the video, but we were having trouble with our sway bar end links. The issue was with the rear, why we didn't record was we were having problems getting the rear sway bar end links undone because they had some corrosion on them. They were kind of rusty, and so they wouldn't come off. So we had to make it work without taking the sway bar end links off, and so therefore we weren't able to record because it was very difficult. What was only supposed to be a few hours ended up to be an entire day worth of installation. I probably don't ever want to do another one, but that's just because of our circumstances with the corrosion from rust on our hardware. So let's get to it.
Why? Stop recording.
Politicians in Washington would set a corporate goal. When your healthcare plan's as good as your Congress, your child's education, this can happen. If we break the corporate strength.
Blade stay sharp, plenty of shaves.
Thanks, guys. Give us a try with this special. Get a hairy 5-blade razor, weighted handle, shave gel, and a travel cover. All and enter Pandora at checkout. That's Harry's.com. Pandora.
Every small business is unique, but every business needs capital when it's time to next project.
Hire staff to get me through the holidays.
Open my next retail location. Capital can give your business access to a flexible line of credit up to $250.
Go ahead.
Don't try this at home. Well, you probably are going to try this at home. But I'm not responsible for anything that happens or anybody that dies. Jesus Christ.
Hey, did you mark that?
Not yet. Oh, jeez. Ah, there we go. All right, there's one. All right. There's two. Now, you still recording? You've got to remove this top hat. So you put this stupid thing in there. It's a preload spacer. I have no idea why they have it, but it's here, and so we're doing it. Here we go. Socket's stuck. Use another one. Oh yeah, this is sketchy. All right. You need an 18 millimeter, and that removes the top strut nut. What?
Did you mark it?
No, I haven't marked it yet. Alright. So, like he just mentioned, this right here is the front of the strut. When you apply the actual lift to the top of the shock, it's going to actually then mount like this. So you have to mark your strut here, like your spring and the strut and everything, and then spin only the shock body 180 degrees, and you're good to go. So, what we'll do is we're going to make sure that we're dead center. And we're going to mark right there, mark our spring, and then we're going to come down and we're going to try and get a good mark there on the shock. It doesn't have to be perfect, but as close to a good line as you can get. And then whenever you mount all of this back, you want this shock line to be 180 degrees from the front lines. All right. So I've rotated the shock 180 degrees already. Now we're going to take our preload spacer and we're going to place it. You have a little hole right here, and then there's a little nipple right here. You're going to want to put the nipple inside that hole and make sure that all of these divots line up with the divots on the rubber piece. And then you're going to take your factory top hat and you're going to place it back onto the strut in the exact orientation it came off of the car. And you're going to make sure that those divots line up, and then you want to make sure that your shock inside is also aligned. And you might have to compress it a little more. That way you can shoot. That way you can get that top nut on. Twist it a little, all right? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna tighten it down a little more. I think it's here. should have given us enough. Then you're going to take your OEM top hat nut. Take your nut, and you're going to put it back on top of your strut rod, and use your 18 millimeter. And you're going to start tightening it down. Now this is definitely not recommended to use an impact on the top of these. That's what I've always heard, and I've always used an impact on the top of them. As long as you don't spin it too fast, it won't burn any seals. Alright, so it was starting to spin a little. So now what we're going to do is we have the whole assembly secured, and now we're going to loosen our spring pressures so we can tighten the nut properly. Those are loose completely. Now we can take our 18 millimeter again. There should be enough pressure on it that it shouldn't spin. It should just lock down. There we are. Now just remove your spring compressors, and then you're going to take your top hat spacer for your lift, and you're going to bolt it down with the supplied hardware from Rough Country, and then it's ready to go back in the car. Now that you got all the spring compressors taken off, it's time to go back into the car. Wait, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's time to put the top spacer on and then go back in the car.
Go ahead.
All right. So now you take your top spacer and you're going to place it on these 3 upper studs, just like that. And take the supplied nuts, it's the small ones, and then you're going to lift up a little bit and thread them on with your fingers until it hits the Loctite. On all 3 of them. This one's a little booger. They made it super tight. Really small space. And then these bolts are a 13 millimeter socket, and you're gonna just run them down. Now that you got all 3 of your studs tightened down with the proper nuts, it's time to go back into the car. So in order to get your whole strut with the Rough Country 2.5-inch lift kit in up front, on the passenger side, we were able to get the whole assembly in without removing the axle because it was a lot longer on the passenger side. I think it seems like it was. So on the driver's side, we had to remove the CV axle in order to get this strut back in. So now it's time to install your strut. You have them all? Like how they all flow through? Got it?
The last one.
Which one?
Shit, no. Probably won't get judged.
I don't know how to do this. Now that you have your axle popped back into your transmission or your 4x4 gearbox, take your axle nut and it's time to just go ahead and secure that into the hub. That way it doesn't fall off anymore. And then, once you do that, it'll be time to attach your upper ball joint to your spindle, and then you'll go ahead and attach your tie rod, sway bar end link. Don't forget that you'll have to reattach your caliper with caliper carrier and make sure that everything is in and tight. Make sure you put the spring back on your caliper, and then you should be good to go on the front. Alright, so I wasn't able to record the rear because we were having so many complications, but I'll go ahead and try to explain it because it's pretty self-explanatory with the instructions that Rough Country supplies. They're very straightforward instructions. I read through them before I even touched the vehicle just to make sure that I had a good understanding of exactly what I was going to be doing. And it turned out that I knew what I was going to be doing and they laid it out perfectly. But it's so much easier to be able to see it. But with the rear, all you have to do is, with your vehicle supported on jack stands, you remove the back wheel, and then you're going to undo your 2 upper control arms, and then you'll also want to undo your toe arm, and you'll want to undo your sway bar end link as well. That way you have full play to push down the lower control arm to be able to pop that spring out. You'll also want to remove the shock body from the lower control arm, because if you don't do that, nothing's going to move. Once you get all that undone, what you're going to do is push down on that lower control arm and get enough room to yank that spring out of its little cup seat or whatever, and then you can go ahead and replace the spring into the lower control arm with your lift kit. It's just a little spacer that goes on the bottom, and then there's a washer and a supplied bolt to clamp it down in place. So once you get all that done, you can go ahead and pop your shock out. So what you'll do is you'll just pop that little grommet on your wheel well cover right in the little corner. It's the corner towards the back of the vehicle. So it's the right side on the right side, and it's the left side on the passenger side. I said that wrong, but you'll understand. It's the little black grommet on your wheel cover to be able to pull back and see the 2 bolts up at the top of the rear shock. And then all you've got to do is just pull the rear shock out and grab your shock spacer, place it on top of your shock, and then what I did was I put a bolt in through the holes, and I worked it up there, and I hand tightened that one bolt and then put the other one and hand tightened it, and then I torqued them down. And then all you've got to do is put a jack underneath the lower control arm to compress that spring enough to be able to get your shock bolted back into the lower control arm. And then all you do from there is just reattach your lower control arms, your tow arm, and your sway bar end link, and you're good to go in the rear. It was pretty easy. It was straightforward. It's a lot easier than the front, because with the front, like you saw, you have to take the whole strut apart, so you have to compress the springs all the way down. And if you've ever used spring compressors before, it's super sketchy, and having to compress that spring down is just, oh, it's a bear. Like, I can't stand it, but we had to do it to put the preload spacer in. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I enjoyed making it. I had a little bit of fun. But if you like this video, hit that thumbs up. And if you would like to keep up with any of the content that Modern Modifications is putting out, hit the subscribe button and that bell to keep up with notifications. Thanks, guys.